الله من الشيطان الرجيم. واعلموا أنما غنمتم من شيء فأن لله خمسه وللرسول ولذي القربى واليتامى والمساكين وابن السبيل إن كنتم آمنتم بالله وما أنزلنا على عبدنا يوم الفرقان يوم التقى الجمعان والله على كل شيء قدير. إذ أنتم بالعدوة الدنيا وهم بالعدوة القصوى والركب أسفل منكم ولو تواعدتم لاختلفتم في الميعاد ولكن ليقضي الله أمرا كان مفعولا ليهلك من هلك عن بينة ويحيى من حي عن بينة وإن الله لسميع عليم. إذ يريكهم الله في منامك قليلا ولو أراكهم كثيرا لفشلتم ولتنازعتم في الأمر ولكن الله سلم إنه عليم بذات الصدور. وإذ يريكموهم إذ التقيتم في أعينكم قليلا ويقللكم في أعينهم ليقضي الله أمرا كان مفعولا وإلى الله ترجع الأمور. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا لقيتم فئة فاثبتوا واذكروا الله كثيرا لعلكم تفلحون. وأطيعوا الله ورسوله ولا تنازعوا فتفشلوا وتذهب ريحكم واصبروا إن الله مع الصابرين. ولا تكونوا كالذين خرجوا من ديارهم بطرا ورئاء الناس ويصدون عن سبيل الله والله بما يعملون محيط. وإذ زين لهم الشيطان أعمالهم وقال لا غالب لكم اليوم من الناس وإني جار لكم فلما تراءت الفئتان نكص على عقبيه وقال إني بريء منكم إني أرى ما لا ترون إني أخاف الله والله شديد العقاب. إذ يقول المنافقون والذين في قلوبهم مرض غر هؤلاء دينهم ومن يتوكل على الله فإن الله عزيز حكيم. ولو ترى إذ يتوفى الذين كفروا الملائكة يضربون وجوههم وأدبارهم وذوقوا عذاب الحريق ذلك بما قدمت أيديكم وأن الله ليس بظلام للعبيد. كدأب آل فرعون والذين من قبلهم كفروا بآيات الله فأخذهم الله بذنوبهم إن الله قوي شديد العقاب. ذلك بأن الله لم يكن مغيرا نعمة أنعمها على قوم حتى يغيروا ما بأنفسهم وأن الله سميع عليم. كدأب آل فرعون والذين من قبلهم كذبوا بآيات ربهم فأهلكناهم بذنوبهم وأغرقنا آل فرعون وكل كانوا ظالمين. إن شر الدواب عند الله الذين كفروا فهم لا يؤمنون الذين عاهدت منهم ثم ينقضون عهدهم في كل مرة وهم لا يتقون. فإما تثقفنهم في الحرب فشرد بهم من خلفهم لعلهم يذكرون وإما تخافن من قوم خيانة فانبذ إليهم على سواء إن الله لا يحب الخائنين ولا يحسبن الذين كفروا سبقوا إنهم لا يعجزون وأعدوا لهم ما استطعتم من قوة ومن رباط الخيل ترهبون به عدو الله وعدوكم وآخرين من دونهم لا تعلمونهم الله يعلمهم وما تنفقوا من شيء في سبيل الله يوفى إليكم وأنتم لا تظلمون وإن جنحوا للسلم فاجنح لها وتوكل على الله إنه هو السميع العليم وإن يريدوا أن يخدعوك فإن حسبك الله هو الذي أيدك بنصره وبالمؤمنين وألف بين قلوبهم لو أنفقت ما في الأرض جميعا ما ألفت بين قلوبهم ولكن الله ألف بينهم إنه عزيز حكيم يا أيها النبي حسبك الله ومن اتبعك من المؤمنين يا أيها النبي حرض المؤمنين على القتال إن يكن منكم 20 صابرون يغلبوا 200 وإن يكن منكم 100 يغلبوا 1000 من الذين كفروا بأنهم قوم لا يفقهون الآن خفف الله عنكم وعلم أن فيكم ضعفا فإن يكن منكم 100 صابرة يغلبوا 200 وإن يكن منكم 1000 يغلبوا 2000 بإذن الله والله مع الصابرين ما كان لنبي أن يكون له أسرى حتى يثخن في الأرض تريدون عرض الدنيا والله يريد الآخرة والله عزيز حكيم لولا كتاب من الله سبق لمسكم فيما أخذتم عذاب عظيم فكلوا مما غنمتم حلالا طيبا واتقوا الله إن الله غفور رحيم يا أيها النبي قل لمن في أيديكم من الأسرى إن يعلم الله في قلوبكم خيرا يؤتكم خيرا مما أخذ منكم ويغفر لكم والله غفور رحيم وإن يريدوا خيانتك فقد خانوا الله من قبل فأمكن منهم والله عليم حكيم إن الذين آمنوا وهاجروا وجاهدوا بأموالهم وأنفسهم في سبيل الله والذين آووا ونصروا أولئك بعضهم أولياء بعض والذين آمنوا ولم يهاجروا ما لكم من ولايتهم من شيء حتى يهاجروا وإن استنصروكم في الدين فعليكم النصر إلا على قوم بينكم وبينهم ميثاق والله بما تعملون بصير والذين كفروا بعضهم أولياء بعض إلا تفعلوه تكن فتنة في الأرض وفساد كبير والذين آمنوا وهاجروا وجاهدوا في سبيل الله والذين آووا ونصروا أولئك هم المؤمنون حقا لهم مغفرة ورزق كريم والذين آمنوا من بعد وهاجروا وجاهدوا معكم فأولئك منكم وأولو الأرحام بعضهم أولى ببعض في كتاب الله إن الله بكل شيء عليم براءة من الله ورسوله إلى الذين عاهدتم من المشركين فسيحوا في الأرض 4 أشهر واعلموا أنكم غير معجز الله وأن الله مخزي الكافرين وأذان من الله ورسوله إلى الناس يوم الحج الأكبر أن الله بريء من المشركين ورسوله فإن تبتم فهو خير لكم وإن توليتم فاعلموا أنكم غير معجز الله وبشر الذين كفروا بعذاب أليم إلا الذين عاهدتم من المشركين ثم لم ينقصوكم شيئا ولم يظاهروا عليكم أحدا فأتموا إليهم عهدهم إلى مدتهم إن الله يحب المتقين فإذا انسلخ الأشهر الحرم فاقتلوا المشركين حيث وجدتموهم وخذوهم واحصروهم واقعدوا لهم كل مرصد فإن تابوا وأقاموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة فخلوا سبيلهم إن الله غفور رحيم وإن أحد من المشركين استجارك فأجره حتى يسمع كلام الله ثم أبلغه مأمنه ذلك بأنهم قوم لا يعلمون كيف يكون للمشركين عهد عند الله وعند رسوله إلا الذين عاهدتم عند المسجد الحرام فما استقاموا لكم فاستقيموا لهم إن الله يحب المتقين كيف وإن يظهروا عليكم لا يرقبوا فيكم إلا ولا ذمة يرضونكم بأفواههم وتأبى قلوبهم وأكثرهم فاسقون اشتروا بآيات الله ثمنا قليلا فصدوا عن سبيله إنهم ساء ما كانوا يعملون لا يرقبون في مؤمن إلا ولا ذمة وأولئك هم المعتدون فإن تابوا وأقاموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة فإخوانكم في الدين ونفصل الآيات لقوم يعلمون وإن نكثوا أيمانهم من بعد عهدهم وطعنوا في دينكم فقاتلوا أئمة الكفر إنهم لا أيمان لهم لعلهم ينتهون ألا تقاتلون قوما نكثوا أيمانهم وهموا بإخراج الرسول وهم بدؤوكم أول مرة أتخشونهم فالله أحق أن تخشوه إن كنتم مؤمنين قاتلوهم يعذبهم الله بأيديكم ويخزهم وينصركم عليهم ويشفي صدور قوم مؤمنين ويذهب غيظ قلوبهم ويتوب الله على من يشاء والله عليم حكيم أم حسبتم أن تتركوا ولما يعلم الله الذين جاهدوا منكم ولم يتخذوا من دون الله ولا رسوله ولا المؤمنين وليجة والله خبير بما تعملون ما كان للمشركين أن يعمروا مساجد الله شاهدين على أنفسهم بالكفر أولئك حبطت أعمالهم وفي النار هم خالدون إنما يعمر مساجد الله من آمن بالله واليوم الآخر وأقام الصلاة وآتى الزكاة ولم يخش إلا الله فعسى أولئك أن يكونوا من المهتدين أجعلتم سقاية الحاج وعمارة المسجد الحرام كمن آمن بالله واليوم الآخر وجاهد في سبيل الله لا يستوون عند الله والله لا يهدي القوم الظالمين. الذين آمنوا وهاجروا وجاهدوا في سبيل الله بأموالهم وأنفسهم أعظم درجة عند الله وأولئك هم الفائزون. يبشرهم ربهم برحمة منه ورضوان وجنات لهم فيها نعيم مقيم خالدين فيها أبدا إن الله عنده أجر عظيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تتخذوا آباءكم وإخوانكم أولياء إن استحبوا الكفر على الإيمان ومن يتولهم منكم فأولئك هم الظالمون. قل إن كان آباؤكم وأبناؤكم وإخوانكم وأزواجكم وعشيرتكم وأموال اقترفتموها وتجارة تخشون كسادها ومساكن ترضونها أحب إليكم من الله ورسوله وجهاد في سبيله فتربصوا حتى يأتي الله بأمره والله لا يهدي القوم الفاسقين. لقد نصركم الله في مواطن كثيرة ويوم حنين إذ أعجبتكم كثرتكم فلم تغن عنكم شيئا وضاقت عليكم الأرض بما رحبت ثم وليتم مدبرين ثم أنزل الله سكينته على رسوله وعلى المؤمنين وأنزل جنودا لم تروها وعذب الذين كفروا وذلك جزاء الكافرين. ثم يتوب الله من بعد ذلك على من يشاء والله غفور رحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إنما المشركون نجس فلا يقربوا المسجد الحرام بعد عامهم هذا وإن خفتم عيلة فسوف يغنيكم الله من فضله إن شاء إن الله عليم حكيم. قاتلوا الذين لا يؤمنون بالله ولا باليوم الآخر ولا يحرمون ما حرم الله ورسوله ولا يدينون دين الحق من الذين أوتوا الكتاب حتى يعطوا الجزية عن يد وهم صاغرون. وقالت اليهود عزير ابن الله وقالت النصارى المسيح ابن الله ذلك قولهم بأفواههم يضاهئون قول الذين كفروا من قبل قاتلهم الله أنى يؤفكون. اتخذوا أحبارهم ورهبانهم أربابا من دون الله والمسيح ابن مريم وما أمروا إلا ليعبدوا إلها واحدا لا إله إلا هو سبحانه عما يشركون. يريدون أن يطفئوا نور الله بأفواههم ويأبى الله إلا أن يتم نوره ولو كره الكافرون. هو الذي أرسل رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله ولو كره المشركون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إن كثيرا من الأحبار والرهبان ليأكلون أموال الناس بالباطل ويصدون عن سبيل الله والذين يكنزون الذهب والفضة ولا ينفقونها في سبيل الله فبشرهم بعذاب أليم يوم يحمى عليها في نار جهنم فتكوى بها جباههم وجنوبهم وظهورهم هذا ما كنزتم لأنفسكم فذوقوا ما كنتم تكنزون إن عدة الشهور عند الله 12 شهرا في كتاب الله يوم خلق السماوات والأرض منها 4 حرم ذلك الدين القيم فلا تظلموا فيهن أنفسكم وقاتلوا المشركين كافة كما يقاتلونكم كافة واعلموا أن الله مع المتقين إنما النسيء زيادة في الكفر يضل به الذين كفروا يحلونه عاما ويحرمونه عاما ليواطئوا عدة ما حرم الله فيحلوا ما حرم الله زين لهم سوء أعمالهم والله لا يهدي القوم الكافرين يا أيها الذين آمنوا ما لكم إذا قيل لكم انفروا في سبيل الله اثاقلتم إلى الأرض أرضيتم بالحياة الدنيا من الآخرة فما متاع الحياة الدنيا في الآخرة إلا قليل إلا تنفروا يعذبكم عذابا أليما ويستبدل قوما غيركم ولا تضروه شيئا والله على كل شيء قدير إلا تنصروه فقد نصره الله إذ أخرجه الذين كفروا ثاني اثنين إذ هما في الغار إذ يقول لصاحبه لا تحزن إن الله معنا فأنزل الله سكينته عليه وأيده بجنود لم تروها وجعل كلمة الذين كفروا السفلى وكلمة الله هي العليا والله عزيز حكيم.
Thank you very much for that. Barakallahu feek. Inshallah, that's it for right now. For our qira'ah after Salat al-Asr, we will continue we will finish the juzu, inshallah, at 8:30 this evening, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, followed up by its meanings as well as the dua of the day. And we might be having something special in store for you today as well, inshallah, with one of the sisters from our community. So, Jazakallah khairan for following us. Jazakallah khairan for tuning in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Who's on the other ICC board one?
Tis I.
Tis I. All right, we're streaming, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Let me get Instagram up. Bismillah. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May the peace and blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be on each and every one of you. Inshallah, you enjoyed your iftar. Inshallah, your thirst is quenched and your bodies are satiated. And I ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from us our fasts. He accepts from us our dua, our supplications, our worship, and any good deed that we presented before Him today. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, thumma salatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. So we begin by seeking refuge in God Almighty from Satan the accursed, and we begin in His name, the merciful, the especially merciful. Assalamu alaikum habibi. And we ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala send His peace and blessings upon our beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Today we have a bit of a condensed schedule, inshallah, so we're going to try our best to get through it because alhamdulillah we have a guest speaker. Sister Amal Fayyad is going to be joining us later on to talk about mental health mental health in the month of Ramadan, mental health in Islam, and she's going to also open it for some questions and answers, inshallah. And we ask that we be transparent, inshallah ta'ala, so that other people can benefit from the discussion. So last night we kind of ended on a note that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ends the 8th juz' with, which was an introduction to this repetitive nature of people coming to the prophets and people rejecting them, or the prophet and the people rejecting the prophets, where the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are sent. They are sent with a clear mission, they are sent with a clear objective, and some of them are also sent with a particular message. They're sent with a very particular theme that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts forth, and that it becomes something that ends up that they end up rejecting. So alhamdulillah, what that really sets for us perfectly is the path then to open it up into into Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showing us what is the real purpose of a prophet. And one of the main things that the prophets are really meant to do is to provide a base of spiritual transformation, right? A base of spiritual and transformation and character reformation. How to take somebody who has been neglected, how to take someone's heart that has been tarnished, and how to help or how to aid in its purification and aid in its reinforcement, inshallah ta'ala, and likewise with our character. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, again, kind of brings us to this realization that we must have, is that we are purifying ourselves from two things. When we talk about character reformation or spiritual reformation or spiritual growth, we are talking about struggling against two things. We are talking about struggling against the devil, which we have heard quite a bit about, and we are also talking about struggling against the ego, which we have also heard quite a little bit about thus far in the Quran. But here we're going to go into a bit more about the ego, and a bit more about something that takes place when, if left unchecked for far too long, then it actually begins to be something that can really sort of be transferable. And alhamdulillah that this ends up being a topic of ours today, which goes into mental health, because this also becomes a theme in this juz'. This becomes a theme in this juz' of the Quran, in this part in the Quran, and it really begins with the story of Musa alayhi salatu wassalam. And one of the things that we get into is the theme of arrogance and corruption, and demonstrating a tyrannical power which is found in the personality of Fir'aun. Right, we find this in this, that there's the pinnacle of evil, the pinnacle of oppression in human form. I don't want to say the pinnacle of well, yeah, you can say evil, but I'm not saying evil like it's a force to be, that you can measure. But I'm talking about someone who was capable of committing oppression to such an extent that he declared himself a lord above God, right? A lord above all of all. And not only that, but he was also tyrannical in his personality, from the way that he oppressed the children of Israel. But also how you see always in the dialogue of between Musa and Fir'aun, right? Between Musa alayhi salatu wassalam and Fir'aun, is that when Pharaoh gains, or when Musa gains a little bit of ground, when he starts gaining a little bit of confidence, Fir'aun does something that's very typical of a bully. It's very typical of a person who truly has no, I guess you could say, compassion, and they neither give it nor do they receive it from others. There's no love between them. And what he does is that he begins to threaten people from even listening to Musa, despite them being in the same room, despite him challenging Musa, and despite Musa, meeting his challenge with answers. He starts to threaten people. Don't you dare listen. Only listen to one side, and that is my side. Do not listen to the other side. So he's a personality that's riddled with injustice, riddled with oppression, riddled with heresy, and so on and so forth, and riddled with a tyrannical nature. And alhamdulillah, what we end up seeing is that some of the people that we really see even coming to aid the Pharaoh end up submitting before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But one of the things that we get highlighted in this chapter is that when the story of Musa and Fir'aun is ever presented in the Quran, there's always a highlight The story of Musa and Fir'aun is the most repeated story in the Quran. And yet each time Musa and Fir'aun are ever brought forth in revelation in the Quran, there is a particular theme that ought to be paid attention to. There's a very particular theme in each one, and each time it's different. Even though it's telling the same confrontation, even though it's telling the same story, every single time the story of Moses and Pharaoh is brought up, there's another highlight that we got to be paying attention to. There's another part of the story that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to get us to pay attention to. And it's absolutely important because in this instance, where the story of Musa and Fir'aun and the story of Bani Israel come up, the main theme is tarbiyah, spiritual reformation, character reformation, spiritual education, right? Education of the soul, how to reform and how to develop the heart, how to refine it and purify it, how to take one's character that may be a bit rough and edgy and how to make it smooth and beautiful. One of the main things that comes up in this juz' with the story of Musa alayhi salatu wassalam is tarbiyah. Now, why is tarbiyah so heavily emphasized? Because Bani Israel were enslaved. The children of Israel were enslaved under Pharaoh. And here is a reflection that we don't often think about or talk about often whenever we talk about the Quran. Here's a reflection or a tafsir even that many people miss, even scholars. And that is when people are enslaved, to such a level and they are shackled and they are put under such neglect, you gotta understand that there's gonna be, not only is there gonna be a certain amount of trauma, there's gonna be a certain amount of inherited trauma. Not only is there going to be a little bit of, rectification needed for people who've been enslaved, it's going to take generations to recover. When a people collectively go through or undergo such an oppression, or such a traumatic experience that spans generations, it's not going to be fixed with the next generation. There may be exceptions, of course. And when we have what we have right here is a perfect example of why so many peoples around the world continue to suffer despite having been, quote unquote, lifted from an oppressive state in the past. And it's a story that gets told over and over and over and over again all around the world. And for us in the United States, there are two primary communities that are really going through inherited trauma and will need a lot of healing before they are ready to move on. And that is the Black American community and the Native American community, the First Nations. So we have an example in the Quran where Musa, a prophet, is sent to not only rescue a people that have been enslaved, but he is also to be the first person to teach them how to begin a transformation, how to start a revival. And this is why the trials of Moses are so many, because he is dealing with a people who are now ignorant. They have been removed. They have been cut off. They are ignorant, and it's not an insult. It's just a reality and what he is bringing forth to them. And if you notice something about Musa in the Quran is always like a rough person. And that's what happens. Like if you go anywhere where there are people who have just gotten out of oppression or are still going to oppression, you can't just go in there with polite manners and expect people to respect you. No, there's got to be a little bit of, you yourself got to be rough around the edges. You yourself got to be rough around the edges. Go anywhere where people have suffered. Those children, they're tough children. Those men, those women, they're tough and they're stubborn and they have a lot of things that need to be worked out, and it's not going to be easy, but the work still needs to be done. And that tarbiyah, right? That spiritual education, that education about character reformation and self-development is going to take a long time. It's going to take generations. And each generation, inshallah ta'ala, God willing, will be better than the next, or be better than the one previous. And this is something that the Quran really highlights. But when it comes to Muslims, sometimes I feel like we've forgotten it, or we've just neglected it, because we're always asking for a Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi right now. We're always asking for a Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi right now. People think that Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi came out of a vacuum, like poof. This amazing figure came who then unified all the Muslims and rid the Muslim lands of the Crusaders and freed Jerusalem. That's not how it happened. It took generations for Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi to come out. And if you want to go back, it goes back to the reformation that certain men and women started to set in motion. It doesn't happen in a lifetime. The people who started the reformation that led up to Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi were not alive when he comes. They were dead. But they sparked it. They started it. They started this movement. I don't even want to say a movement, this revival of spiritual education, of character reformation. And this is highlighted in the Quran, in these parts of the Quran, very clearly. And another thing that is even highlighted is how fickle this beginning stage is. Because when Musa leaves to the mountain and when Musa retreats to receive revelation from his Lord, what happens when he comes back? He finds that the Bani Israel started worshipping a calf, and they were misled by the Samiri, or the Samaritan. And even elsewhere, a man that he sent to Midian, right? Ba'ura, the man that he sent to Midian to be as a delegation for Moses, when he sent him, what happened? He was easily bribed. And he sacrificed his principles. The Bani Israel seem to be enjoying in their desires, and they enjoy all of the things that they like to pursue, and they also enjoy the things that they see around them. Like they're walking with Musa, they're traveling with Musa, they see a village worshiping statues, and they're like, oh, Moses, we want the same thing. That looks amazing, that looks cool, that looks so wow, why can't we do that? And Musa is just kind of frustrated, as any of us I imagine we would be. But even him, as a prophet, he has to deal with them in a very serious way. And what happens when people have been so far removed from their ancestry, or so far removed from their traditions, like Bani Israel, and like many people today, like many people will be from here on out, like many people who will be, there's too many to list, so I'm not even going to list them, lest I forget a group of people who are suffering, and I forget them in my dua. May Allah alleviate and bring relief to everyone who is suffering in a similar way, where they have been cut off from tradition, where they have been cut off from stability, where they have been cut off from their infrastructure, and they got to start all over. It didn't take one generation to build what they lost. It took generations, and sometimes even a millennia, to build what they lost. And you think it's going to be built again in one lifetime? One of the things that even brings them open, what gets them open to, one of the big ills that they are now open to, is competitiveness. When people are brought to their lowest point, they start stepping over each other. And this is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala perfectly transitions to Surah Al-Anfal, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tries to show the companions not to argue over material wealth, particularly the spoils of war. Particularly the spoils of war, because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, and I can check with Sheikh Ahmed Shqirat on the soundness of this hadith, but I've heard it being quoted many times, and I've read it being cited many times in many texts. But the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, I don't fear that my ummah will fall into polytheism or shirk. I don't fear that my ummah is going to fall into these things. I don't fear that my ummah's aqidah is going to be corrupt to such a point where it is no longer monotheism. He says, I fear that my ummah will begin to compete with each other over the dunya. They will begin to compete with each other over things like status, fame, wealth, acquisition of whatever, fill in the blank. And that happens to a people who are cut off. When they get cut off, that's what happens. And again, it takes time to recover. It takes time to heal. And we ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only bring us to healing quicker. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring us to his mercy and to his justice, inshaAllah, that much sooner, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Inshallah, we're going to be transitioning to the dua of the day, and after that, we'll be going to Brother Malik for the recitation, inshallah. Malik, can you actually send me the verse that your brother ended on? I lost track of it. So, all right, cool. The dua of today that Dr. Shabib al-Hadri, our elder, and one of our leaders in our community put forth together for us today is the dua of istikhara, seeking counsel. I need to be praying istikhara. This is a prayer that we do. It's a prayer that you do 2 rak'ah sunnah, and you follow up with this dua to seek the counsel and the aid of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but also the blessings that when I make a decision, oh Allah, please inject your blessings into this. So it goes as such in Arabic, and then we'll read the translation. Allahumma inni astakhiruka bi'ilmika wa astaqdiruka biqudratika wa as'aluka min fadlika al-azim fa innaka taqdiru wa la aqdir wa ta'lamu wa la a'lam wa anta 'allamul ghuyub. اللهم إن كنت تعلم أن هذا الأمر خير لي في ديني ومعاشي وعاقبة أمري عاجله وآجله فاقدره لي ويسره لي ثم بارك لي فيه وإن كنت تعلم أن هذا الأمر شر لي في ديني ومعاشي وعاقبة أمري عاجله وآجله فاصرفه عني واصرفني عنه واقدر لي الخير حيث كان ثم ارضني به. O Allah, I seek the counsel of your knowledge, and I seek the help of your omnipotence, and I beseech you for your magnificence, your magnificent grace. Surely you are capable, and I am not. You know, and I know not. You are the knower of the unseen. O Allah, if you know that this matter, then mention whatever the matter may be, is good for me in my religion and in my life and my welfare and in the life to come. Or say in this life or in the afterlife, fi dini, right? With dunya wal akhirah, however you want to phrase it, it's totally permissible. Then ordain it for me and make it easy for me, then bless me in it. And if you know that this matter is bad for me in my religion and in my life, or for my welfare in the life to come, and again, you can phrase it any way you like, then distance it from me and distance me from it, and ordain for me what is good wherever it may be, and help me be content with it. Whoever seeks the counsel of the Creator will not regret it, and whoever seeks the advice of the believers will feel confident about his decisions. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also says in the Quran, and consult them in the affair, then when you have taken a decision, then put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, jazakumullahu khairan. We're going to transition now, inshallah, for 15 minutes. We're going to have a shorter recitation window today, inshallah ta'ala, so that we can have room for our sister Amal Fayyad, who is going to be talking about mental health, inshallah ta'ala. So please stay tuned. And again, the topic of mental health is very much related to what we just said the Quran was highlighting in last night's juz'u, inshallah. Where is Brother Malik? There he is. Bismillah, ready when you are. What ayah did we leave off of? What is that? 41. Okay, Jazakallah khairan. So we are starting on Surah number 9, ayah 41.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. انفروا خفافا وثقالا وجاهدوا بأموالكم وأنفسكم في سبيل الله، ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون. لو كان عرضا قريبا وسفرا قاصدا لاتبعوك ولكن بعدت عليهم الشقة، وسيحلفون بالله لو استطعنا لخرجنا معكم يهلكون أنفسهم والله يعلم إنهم لكاذبون. عفى الله عنك لم أذنت لهم حتى يتبين لك الذين صدقوا وتعلم الكاذبين. لا يستأذنك الذين يؤمنون بالله واليوم الآخر أن يجاهدوا بأموالهم وأنفسهم والله عليم بالمتقين. إنما يستأذنك الذين لا يؤمنون بالله واليوم الآخر وارتابت قلوبهم فهم في ريبهم يترددون. ولو أرادوا الخروج لأعدوا له عدة ولكن كره الله بعاثهم فثبطهم وقيل اقعدوا مع القاعدين. لو خرجوا فيكم ما زادوكم إلا خبالا ولأوضعوا خلالكم يبغون الفتنة وفيكم سماعون لهم والله عليم بالظالمين. لقد ابتغوا الفتنة من قبل وقلبوا لك الأمور حتى جاء الحق وظهر أمر الله وهم كارهون. ومنهم من يقول ائذن لي ولا تفتني ألا في الفتنة سقطوا وإن جهنم لمحيطة بالكافرين. إن تصبك حسنة تسؤهم وإن تصبك مصيبة يقولوا قد أخذنا أمرنا من قبل ويتولوا وهم فرحون. قل لن يصيبنا إلا ما كتب الله لنا هو مولانا وعلى الله فليتوكل المؤمنون. قل هل تربصون بنا إلا إحدى الحسنيين ونحن نتربص بكم أن يصيبكم الله بعذاب من عنده أو بأيدينا فتربصوا إنا معكم متربصون. قل أنفقوا طوعا أو كرها لن يتقبل منكم إنكم كنتم قوما فاسقين. وما منعهم أن تقبل منهم نفقاتهم إلا أنهم كفروا بالله وبرسوله ولا يأتون الصلاة إلا وهم كسالى ولا ينفقون إلا وهم كارهون. فلا تعجبك أموالهم ولا أولادهم إنما يريد الله ليعذبهم بها في الحياة الدنيا وتزهق أنفسهم وهم كافرون. ويحلفون بالله إنهم لمنكم وما هم منكم ولكنهم قوم يفرقون. لو يجدون ملجأ أو مغارات أو مدخلا لولوا إليه وهم يجمحون. ومنهم من يلمزك في الصدقات فإن أعطوا منها رضوا وإن لم يعطوا منها إذا هم يسخطون. ولو أنهم رضوا ما آتاهم الله ورسوله وقالوا حسبنا الله سيؤتينا الله من فضله ورسوله إنا إلى الله راغبون. إنما الصدقات للفقراء والمساكين والعاملين عليها والمؤلفة قلوبهم وفي الرقاب والغارمين وفي سبيل الله وابن السبيل فريضة من الله والله عليم حكيم. ومنهم الذين يؤذون النبي ويقولون هو أذن قل أذن خير لكم يؤمن بالله ويؤمن للمؤمنين ورحمة للذين آمنوا منكم والذين يؤذون رسول الله لهم عذاب أليم. يحلفون بالله لكم ليرضوكم والله ورسوله أحق أن يرضوه إن كانوا مؤمنين. ألم يعلموا أنه من يحادد الله ورسوله فأن له نار جهنم خالدين فيها ذلك الخزي العظيم. يحذر المنافقون أن تنزل عليهم سورة تنبئهم بما في قلوبهم قل استهزئوا إن الله مخرج ما تحذرون. ولئن سألتهم ليقولن إنما كنا نخوض ونلعب قل أبالله وآياته ورسوله كنتم تستهزئون لا تعتذروا قد كفرتم بعد إيمانكم إن نعف عن طائفة منكم نعذب طائفة بأنهم كانوا مجرمين. المنافقون والمنافقات بعضهم من بعض يأمرون بالمنكر وينهون عن المعروف ويقبضون أيديهم نسوا الله فنسيهم إن المنافقين هم الفاسقون. وعد الله المنافقين والمنافقات والكفار نار جهنم خالدين فيها هي حسبهم ولعنهم الله ولهم عذاب مقيم. كالذين من قبلكم كانوا أشد منكم قوة وأكثر أموالا وأولادا فاستمتعوا بخلاقهم فاستمتعتم بخلاقكم كما استمتع الذين من قبلكم بخلاقهم وخضتم كالذي خاضوا أولئك حبطت أعمالهم في الدنيا والآخرة وأولئك هم الخاسرون. ألم يأتهم نبأ الذين من قبلهم قوم نوح وعاد وثمود وقوم إبراهيم وأصحاب مدين والمؤتفكات أتتهم رسلهم بالبينات فما كان الله ليظلمهم ولكن كانوا أنفسهم يظلمون. والمؤمنون والمؤمنات بعضهم أولياء بعض يأمرون بالمعروف وينهون عن المنكر ويقيمون الصلاة ويؤتون الزكاة ويطيعون الله ورسوله أولئك سيرحمهم الله إن الله عزيز حكيم. وعد الله المؤمنين والمؤمنات جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار خالدين فيها ومساكن طيبة في جنات عدن ورضوان من الله أكبر ذلك هو الفوز العظيم. يا أيها النبي جاهد الكفار والمنافقين واغلظ عليهم ومأواهم جهنم وبئس المصير. يحلفون بالله ما قالوا ولقد قالوا كلمة الكفر وكفروا بعد إسلامهم وهموا بما لم ينالوا وما نقموا إلا أن أغناهم الله ورسوله من فضله فإن يتوبوا يك خيرا لهم وإن يتولوا يعذبهم الله عذابا أليما في الدنيا والآخرة وما لهم في الأرض من ولي ولا نصير. ومنهم من عاهد الله لئن آتانا من فضله لنصدقن ولنكونن من الصالحين. فلما آتاهم من فضله بخلوا به وتولوا وهم معرضون. فأعقبهم نفاقا في قلوبهم إلى يوم يلقونه بما أخلفوا الله ما وعدوه وبما كانوا يكذبون. ألم يعلموا أن الله يعلم سرهم ونجواهم وأن الله علام الغيوب. الذين يلمزون المطوعين من المؤمنين في الصدقات والذين لا يجدون إلا جهدهم فيسخرون منهم سخر الله منهم ولهم عذاب أليم. استغفر لهم أو لا تستغفر لهم إن تستغفر لهم 70 مرة فلن يغفر الله لهم ذلك بأنهم كفروا بالله ورسوله والله لا يهدي القوم الفاسقين. فرح المخلفون بمقعدهم خلاف رسول الله وكرهوا أن يجاهدوا بأموالهم وأنفسهم في سبيل الله وقالوا لا تنفروا في الحر قل نار جهنم أشد حرا لو كانوا يفقهون. فليضحكوا قليلا وليبكوا كثيرا جزاء بما كانوا يكسبون. فإن رجعك الله إلى طائفة منهم فاستأذنوك للخروج فقل لن تخرجوا معي أبدا ولن تقاتلوا معي عدوا إنكم رضيتم بالقعود أول مرة فاقعدوا مع الخالفين ولا تصل على أحد منهم مات أبدا ولا تقم على قبره إنهم كفروا بالله ورسوله وماتوا وهم فاسقون. ولا تعجبك أموالهم وأولادهم إنما يريد الله أن يعذبهم بها في الدنيا وتزهق أنفسهم وهم كافرون. وإذا أنزلت سورة أن آمنوا بالله وجاهدوا مع رسوله استأذنك أولو الطول منهم وقالوا ذرنا نكن مع القاعدين. رضوا بأن يكونوا مع الخوالف وطبع على قلوبهم فهم لا يفقهون. لكن الرسول والذين آمنوا معه جاهدوا بأموالهم وأنفسهم وأولئك لهم الخيرات وأولئك هم المفلحون. أعد الله لهم جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار خالدين فيها ذلك الفوز العظيم. وجاء المعذرون من الأعراب ليؤذن لهم وقعد الذين كذبوا الله ورسوله سيصيب الذين كفروا منهم عذاب أليم. ليس على الضعفاء ولا على المرضى ولا على الذين لا يجدون ما ينفقون حرج إذا نصحوا لله ورسوله ما على المحسنين من سبيل والله غفور رحيم. ولا على الذين إذا ما أتوك لتحملهم قلت لا أجد ما أحملكم عليه تولوا وأعينهم تفيض من الدمع حزنا ألا يجدوا ما ينفقون. إنما السبيل على الذين يستأذنونك وهم أغنياء رضوا بأن يكونوا مع الخوالف وطبع الله على قلوبهم فهم لا يعلمون. يعتذرون إليكم إذا رجعتم إليهم قل لا تعتذروا لن نؤمن لكم قد نبأنا الله من أخباركم وسيرى الله عملكم ورسوله ثم تردون إلى عالم الغيب والشهادة فينبئكم بما كنتم تعملون.
Jazakallah khairan. Barakallahu feek, Brother Malik, inshallah. May Allah reward you. So alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, that brings us to the end of our recitation for today, inshallah. For those of you who are watching on Instagram, if you'd like to hop onto YouTube or Facebook, so that way you can see the full stream where we're now going to enter a session into where Sister Amal Fayyad is going to be presenting on mental health and opening it up to a Q&A. So if you'd really like to hop on, just hop onto our Facebook page or our YouTube page and you can follow the stream from there. We're going to have time for questions. We're going to have a time to listen to our dear sister who's serving our community in a variety of ways. So if you're stuck on Instagram, I highly recommend you get off and hop onto something else. Inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah for those of you on Instagram. All right. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Amal. How are you doing?
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Let me just stop this. There's a little bit of echo on your end, I believe. I think it is resolved now, inshallah. All right.
For a second. So. All right. Inshallah. So, are we ready?
Ready whenever you are, inshallah. The floor is yours.
All right, inshallah. Let me just turn it down a little bit. You can hear me properly, right?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly fine. Alhamdulillah.
All right. Bismillah. So just not understood now. All right, inshallah. So when the topic of mental health was brought up to talk about mental health during the time of coronavirus, I honestly felt a little bit overwhelmed with the task, just because it seems like there's a lot of it there, and it's become almost not redundant, but it's become a lot, and there's a lot there, and we're already however long into the process. This all began like mid-March, and now we're already in May. I feel like just hashing out the same thing over and over is actually not a good thing. It's not a good way to get over something. Like when a trauma happens, just sitting there and talking about it over and over and over is not helpful. What's helpful is talking about how to move forward from it in a healthy way and in processing it properly. So something that's come up a lot, and there's a lot of research and articles that are coming out about it right now, is what's called toxic positivity. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it or if you've heard it before. This is a general.
I have, alhamdulillah.
Yeah. It seems like you've been accused of toxic positivity, maybe.
Yeah, I have.
I'm just kidding. All right, it's subhanAllah. So toxic positivity, what it is whenever something bad happens, you always have this one person that will come up to you and be like, Ya akhi, like, ya ukhti, come on, you got to be positive. Other people have got it worse. People in Africa are hungry. Like, you should be thankful for what you have. At least you have a roof over your head. At least this is going on. Oh, don't be sad. Like, you lost a child, you have 4 others. It's actually gotten to that point that I was actually at a janazah at the masjid, and a sister lost her child. And I heard somebody tell her that, sister, don't be sad. Allah gave you 4 and only took 1. So subhanAllah, this is where we get to a level of like toxic positivity, where you're not allowing the person to actually feel the feelings, to actually feel the emotions that they have. And just to take a step back, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us as humans to have these feelings. You know, He could have created us like angels where we don't have emotions, we don't have feelings the way that we do as humans, but He chose us to have these emotions. He chose us to have these feelings for a reason. These emotions that we have are actually conveying information to your brain. They're conveying that something is either wrong or something is different. It could be a good feeling. It could be happiness. It could be love. It could be, contentment. Those emotions, are feeling them for a reason, whether it's, to get up and be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or if it's fear, it's to get yourself out of a dangerous situation. No. So when you tell somebody who's going through a hard time, at least be thankful you have a job still during coronavirus time. At least be thankful that, you have shelter and you have food. I'm not saying don't be grateful. There's a difference between gratefulness, positivity, happiness, and contentment, if that makes sense. So I could be content with the fact that I'm quarantined in my home with my family safe, alhamdulillah, but I can also be upset and feel a sense of loss and a sense of grief that I can't go to work, that I can't go to the masjid in Ramadan, that I don't have the sense of community that I would rather have, that I, break my first day of iftar with my family. Those are all normal. Those are all okay feelings, and they can all be at the same time. So you can't say, I'm content, but I'm sad. I'm content and I'm sad. It's okay. Those two don't negate each other, if that makes sense.
No,
So,
it does. It does.
Sorry, were you saying
No,
something?
I'm agreeing with you. That's a very beautiful point. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. So, like I said, when emotions happen, they're actually trying to tell you something. They're trying to convey something. And unless you check in with yourself, you're not going to know what to do with these emotions. And just, shoving them down and just being, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, I'm being positive, other people have got it worse, and you just continue to shove it down. What ends up happening is eventually one little thing will cause an eruption of these emotions to come out eventually. So one of the examples I actually use this with my clients all the time, is they always tell me, like, well, I don't know what to do. All these emotions are going through my mind. I don't know how to weed through them. I always tell them, use the example of if you're on a bike, or God forbid, you're in a car and you're in an accident, or if you're on your bike and you fall down and you hurt yourself. Whenever that fall happens, there's a lot of emotions and thoughts that go through your head. What do you do when these thoughts or these emotions go through your head at first? So the first thing you have to do is you acknowledge what happened. You're like, oh, I was just in an accident, or oh, I just fell off my bicycle. So you acknowledge what happened to you. Then 2, you remove yourself from harm's way. So let's say you're like in the middle of the street, you get up and you move yourself out of it. And then 3, you actually start to survey the damage. Like, did I get a scratch here? Did I scab my knee? Am I bleeding? Is my bike okay? Or if you're in the car, is my family okay? You start surveying everything. And then you get to the point of you begin to repair the damage that happened. So that's the same thing with emotions. So COVID-19 happens. It hit us all. It hit everybody in a different way. So we all acknowledge what happened. Some people are still in that phase of really trying to understand what it is that happened to them. Some people are in the state of removing themselves from danger. They're following the quarantine and they're removing themselves from harm's way. And then some people are like starting to survey the damage. Okay, well, I lost my job. What do I do now? I lost my social connectedness. What do I do now? And then a lot of people are in that level of they're beginning to repair the damage. They're starting to have Zoom iftars with their families. Or like what ICC is doing. They're having recitations of Quran. We're trying to fix whatever we can with whatever we have. Now, that doesn't mean that the scab that we got on our knee is going to disappear. It doesn't mean that, the hit that you got to your bike or to your car are going to go away forever. Those things might have permanent changes to your bike or to your car, but you're recovering in a different way. So that example can be used for emotions. So now we're all quarantined, we're all hurting, we're all suffering in different ways. We need to acknowledge the emotions that we're going through. One of the emotions that many people are going through that might not be named is grief and loss. I know this sounds odd to some people. The emotion that we are feeling right now is grief and loss. There's a grief to every high school senior or college senior that's going to lose out on graduating and walking in the ceremony. There's grief and loss for people who've had to cancel their weddings. There's grief and loss for families who couldn't be together on the first day of iftar. There's grief and loss for the people who their only connection is during Ramadan at the masjid. That's their only way to feel the feeling of Ramadan and the soul of Ramadan. So grief and loss are a very true emotion. They're a very true feeling that many people have got to kind of just hit the brakes on things for a little bit and just let that feeling sit. Let that emotion settle in, name that emotion, name that feeling, so that you're able to survey where the pain is, you're able to begin the repairing of the damage that's happening. A lot of times we hear the word or the term emotional intelligence thrown around, and it's become a whole thing. Like I did a marriage seminar, and somebody was like, my spouse must have emotional intelligence. I'm like, okay, well, that's cool. Do you have emotional intelligence? What does emotional intelligence mean? It means the ability to identify and manage your own emotions and the emotions of those people around you. So the 3 skills that are required for a person to have that emotional intelligence. One is to have emotional awareness. So kind of like what I said, you're able to survey your emotions, you're able to figure out what you're feeling, what's going on with you. 2 is the ability to harness the emotions and to apply them to tasks in order to problem solve or in order to think through things. And the last one is the ability to manage your emotions by regulating your own emotions and helping the people around you to regulate their emotions. So once you get those 3 skills, you've gotten what we call emotional intelligence, or you've reached that level of you have emotional intelligence. And just like IQ, you're able to increase your intelligence, you're able to increase your emotional intelligence as well with working on it and just practicing more by naming your emotions. SubhanAllah, there are books out now that talk about the Prophet Muhammad and his emotional intelligence and his ability to regulate his own emotion and the emotions of people around him. For some reason, we don't always talk about the intelligence, the emotional intelligence of the Prophet in that way, or we don't talk about how the Prophet shared and conveyed his emotions to those around him. Or if we do, we talk about how he was always very positive, he was always very happy, but we don't talk about the times where he's really, really sad. And it's okay. Like we think, oh, astaghfirullah, don't talk about the Prophet. He wasn't depressed. He wasn't sad. No, he had a whole year called the year of sadness. Having a year of sadness where you're constantly sad is diagnosable at this point. Once you hit 6 months, that's considered depression. I'm not going to diagnose the Prophet. I'm sure people will be with pitchforks at my door. But what I'm saying is the Prophet had very, very sad moments in his life after the loss of his wife and the loss of his uncle, the loss of his son. The story or the hadith, the dua, the Prophet said when Ibrahim, his son, passed away. He said, "Inna al-'ayna la tadma'u, inna al-qalba la yahzan, wa la naqul illa ma yurdi Allah." So he said, indeed, the eyes shed tears and the heart is grieved, but we don't say except what pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is not being positive. That is not being toxically positive. That's being content with Allah's decree, acknowledging his emotion. Right? He's acknowledging the fact that his heart is grieving. He acknowledged the fact that his eyes are crying, but he also reminded himself that with all of that, I will not say anything that will displease Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that shows you a level of acknowledgement of emotions that the Prophet was at. Now on the other end, on the happier side of things, just acknowledging emotions. There was a time where the Prophet, I believe, correct me Umar if I'm wrong, he kissed the head of one of the children. I don't know if it was his child or somebody else. And a Bedouin in the time, he saw him and he's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, I'm showing love and I kissed this child. And he's like, I have this many, I think he said like I have 10 or 12 children. I've never kissed a single one of them. So the Prophet said, like, whoever does not show mercy will not be, shown mercy by Allah. And he encouraged him to show love and mercy to his child. Am I correct on that story, Ahmed, or does it need to be? It's good. Okay. The other story, the Prophet was kind of just hanging out with one of the Sahaba, and a third Sahabi walked, or a second Sahabi walked by in front of them. And the one Sahabi who was hanging out with the Prophet told him, "Oh, Prophet of Allah, oh Messenger of Allah, that person, he's my guy. Like, I truly love this person." So Prophet Muhammad said, "Have you ever told him that?" And he said, "No." He's like, "Hurry up, go right now, go tell him." So he went to the man and told him, "I love you." And the Sahabi said, "I love you for the sake of Allah." Or sorry, the Sahabi told the man, "I love you for the sake of Allah." And the other Sahabi responded, "May the one for whose sake you love me, love you too." In another narration, the Prophet told them, Tell him, for it will strengthen the brotherhood between you. So I'm kind of giving you the two examples of, the extreme showing of emotion, of showing what we would call a positive emotion. I'm putting it between quotes because there's no good or bad emotions. But that emotion of love and care and happiness, he promoted that people convey that, whether it's to friends, to children, to his wife. And when it comes to sadness, he also encouraged people by modeling it to us, that it's okay to be sad, it's okay to be grieved. But he also showed us how to do it properly. So the reason I'm bringing this up is that many people have kind of almost hit a wall during this time. They're stuck between, okay, well, COVID-19 happened, it started all kind of hit Arizona really hard in March. And now we're at this point where we're at a level, I will be the first person to tell you, I'm at a level where I've hit a wall emotionally. I'm exhausted with everything that's going on, exhausted of working from home, homeschooling and everything. And then you have people you talk to and they're like, be positive, it's okay, people have it worse, at least we're not in New York, at least we're not in Washington State. At least we're, you've got a roof over your head. And then my own personal, like that turmoil that goes around, that it's like, okay, I need to be content, I need to be happy with Allah's decree. And then I realized, now I need to name the emotions that I'm going through. There is grief and loss. There's also anxiety about when is this going to be all gone. There's sadness about not being at the masjid. Just going on, I can name a whole array of emotions that are going through within me just by myself, let alone within my family, my children, my husband, everything that's going around. So this is the time I feel like where we have to make that decision. What are we going to do next? We need to start surveying our bodies. We need to start surveying where our damage happened, kind of like the example of falling off the bicycle. And now we figure out, how do we start getting better? How do we start fixing things? Things are most likely not going to go back to the normal that we were at before. Inshallah, they will go back to some sort of normal. But this is a time to really hone in on our emotions and work on our emotional intelligence, inshallah, so that we're able to come out of this, inshallah, in a better way, whichever that new normal that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring upon us. We're also in Ramadan. We know that when you're going through emotions, it's good to talk to people about it. That's why when you're really upset, you call a close friend and you kind of just vent to them, or you vent to your spouse or to your therapist or whoever. This is the time where you begin to vent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a different level of talking. You're not talking with ungratefulness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is Ramadan. I feel like this is the time for us to really sit there and have that, that wall that we have between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, break it down, and let's start breaking down our emotions to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't need to tell him how we feel, because subhanAllah, no one knows how we feel better than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But this is the time to sit down and actually tell Allah how you feel, and call upon his names that show his mercy. So call on his name, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, Al-Latif. I don't have the time to go into these names, but the name Ya Latif is one of those names that really brings you that level of lutf. Do you know how to describe lutf in a better way? Because I can't come down with an actual explanation of the word. Do you have one?
Of Ya Latif?
The name Al-Latif, yeah.
My favorite one is the subtle.
The subtle, yeah.
The subtle
But,
and gentle.
So a lutf
it's like
is
interchangeable. Gentle and subtle at the same time, because it's a different type of kindness. It's like it's a kindness that you sometimes can't detect. You don't really see it happening, but it's there and you feel it.
Yeah, subhanAllah. So that's the name that I feel a lot of us don't call upon Allah with. But again, that's the subtle, the kind, the gentle. You think about a mother, she caresses the head of her child with lutf, with gentleness, with subtleness. There's a sense of love that comes with it too. It's not just subtle and gentle. There's this unconditional love that comes with that name. So this is the time to go through the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, find a name that resonates with you, that will help you connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and vent to him. Tell him, Ya Allah, this is what I'm going through. Ya Allah, this is what I'm feeling. If you don't know how to name your feelings, this sounds funny, Google the emotions wheel, and you will have a wheel that has over 100 different emotions. Go through them, teach them to your children. They say for a person to have emotional intelligence, they need to be able to name 12 emotions. Most people can't name more than 6. So highly, highly recommend that everybody go through that emotions wheel, check in with yourself. What am I feeling? Check in with your children, check in with your spouse. This is the time to come together to really learn these habits, as well as reach to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm not saying if you have mental illness that dua and praying are the only solution. I promise you that. But I'm saying start with that. Talk to your friends, talk to your family. If it reaches a level where none of that is helping in any way, reach out to your professionals. I don't want to take any more time. We're opening the chat box for questions. Imam Omar is going to read them out, and I'll be more than happy to answer if anybody has.
We have one person who is asking, can we get the name of any of those books that you mentioned about I believe that's referring to the emotional intelligence of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Yeah, so the book that I'm actually currently reading, and I've had a lot of recommendations, is called With the Heart in Mind. Let me see.
Mikael Smith.
Yes, Mikael Smith's book. So it's a very good read so far. Did I say the name of it right? Yeah, With the Heart in Mind. It's part of the Qalam Foundation.
Yeah. We have another question about someone who is asking, I think, trying to confirm what you said. Acknowledge what happened, remove yourself from harm's way, analyze the situation, repair and recover from what happened. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So
cool.
it could be not necessarily from what happened. It could be recovering. So the example I was giving is if you fall off the bike, get yourself out of the street, you survey, okay, where did I get scabbed? Where did I get cut? And then you recover from that cut. You might not recover from the fall, if that makes sense. Like you might not get your bike to get better. Like in our time of coronavirus, we might not be able to stop the coronavirus right now, but we recover. We got hit with a rainfall of bricks. How do we need to survey? Okay, what happened to us? How do I get better from here?
We have another question. One moment, please. How do we balance allowing ourselves? One second. How do we balance allowing ourselves to feel bad about the circumstances we are in, sit in it, and acknowledge those feelings, versus knowing the positive and embracing the positive thoughts without letting it get to a toxic level?
Can you repeat that?
So how do we balance allowing ourselves to feel everything that's going on with the circumstances and let it actually sink in, versus knowing all of the positive aspects of it or the positive thoughts that we have without letting it get toxic? I guess he's asking, how do we moderate ourselves from feeling the positive and the negative, being a realist or a centrist in this regard? How do we at least put a cap on it so we don't become positive, toxic thinkers?
Yeah. Or just completely negative and just sit there and dwell in the sadness of it all.
Yeah.
SubhanAllah, there's a level to all of it. And even if you think about like Islamically, when somebody passes away, there's 3 days of grief, like where you go and you do that and all of that. So it's not telling you like after 3 days, khalas, like your feelings, you shut them down, you're done. But those 3 days are there to actually feel the emotions and just really, really sit there. Most people will tell you that have lost a loved one, that after the 3rd day is when the, kind of like when the storm goes by and they sit down, they settle, and they start feeling those emotions. So how to balance between the two? First of all, if somebody comes up to you and tells you something sad or that they're going through something hard, don't automatically twist it on them and be like, well, at least look at the positive side. This didn't happen. It could have been worse, right? No, sit there with the emotion, acknowledge and validate what they're going through, and tell them, I understand, I feel with you, or I validate your feelings. I totally understand what you're going through, or I can't even imagine what you're going through, because saying I totally understand when you don't really understand is invalidating in itself. But just saying, I feel for you. How can I help? if you don't know what else to say. So that's what we do with somebody else. Now with yourself, it's the same thing. Acknowledge, okay, what is it that I'm going through? What am I feeling? It sounds weird, but allowing yourself a certain amount of time to go through those emotions, just telling yourself, I'm going to try just sitting with it until I feel like I could start getting to a level of problem solving. So if you're going to give yourself 3 days come by, I'm still not able to get over the emotional hurt and I can't start problem solving yet, give yourself another couple days and deal with it. Now, if it gets to the point where you're not getting out of bed, you're, shutting people out, you're isolating, then that's the time to reach out to somebody and ask for help. I don't know if that kind of helps in balancing the two a little bit.
I think it does. I think another question that I can ask on that is that I feel like that imbalance happens because we don't know how to even define emotions, like you said, let alone name emotions, but define them. Mm-hmm. And I feel like Islamically, there's a mistranslation of a very important term that's thrown around to make people feel a certain way, lest they be seen as irreligious, which is rida, right? Be happy for the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when I look at it, I really don't see it as being happy. I see it as being content. And that's really where I see the intention being there. Be content with the decree of God. How do we then differentiate being content versus being happy? Because I feel like sometimes when they say like, oh, be content with the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, don't have a complaint against him, they view that then as being happy. And I've actually seen somebody who was a very pious person, and when the death of a loved one occurred in his life, he kept repeating that I'm happy with the decree of Allah. I'm happy. And he was trying to force himself to smile through the pain and try to have that overwhelm him and overcome him. So how can we get ourselves to come to a healthy understanding of what it means to be content?
I think that's a lecture on its own, qana'a or contentment. Mm-hmm. That we definitely will not have time to go over that. It's a whole different thing. But I think you gave the perfect example. Being content is accepting Allah's decree, where you're not sitting there and you're like, why Allah? Why Allah? You'll hear it a lot. And it's funny if you've ever watched Egyptian shows or movies, it's like, oh, why Allah did you take him? He was such a good person. Like when somebody dies, I'm like, okay, well, it's not your decision. And because it's a good person or a bad person, that doesn't determine if they get to live or die, right? But that's where you start having complaints against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or you complain to Allah, you're like, I can't believe you did this to me, or I can't believe this is happening to me. And that's when you get to a level of you're not content with Allah's decree. And I think what's really important is just, again, it takes practice. And at first, the shock of the emotion, the trauma of an emotion and the shaitan, obviously, when something happens, you get triggered by something or trauma happens, the shaitan will come and start putting seeds in your head that oh, you must be a bad person, Allah must not love you, so on and so forth. But I think you have to acknowledge that shock, the first shock of it. You, again, survey what happened to you, and then you take a moment to say, okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the best of planners. I think in order to get to the level of contentment, you have to really, truly believe and have tawakkul on Allah, that He has your best, sorry, can't think of the word, he's the best of planners. Nobody can do anything better for you in this life or the hereafter other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And whatever is happening to you was not to hurt you. It's because Allah decreed it this way for a better reason, that you might not know what it is now, maybe in the hereafter, but just having that tawakkul on Allah, that He has your best, my gosh, what am I trying to say?
Interests.
Best interest. There we go. Your best interest in mind. It's Ramadan.
I got you, inshallah. We have one more question, and I think this should be the last one, inshallah. Yeah. So, sister's asking, if you are stuck in a situation of repeating trauma or repetitive trauma that you are working on getting out of, what is the best way to protect your emotions?
First question is, are you able to get out of that repetitive trauma? Because kind of what I said is removing yourself from the danger is going to be the first step. if you're unable to remove yourself from that danger, are you able to tap into a mental health counselor that's able to strengthen that with you? Because from the sounds of it, it seems like this is not the normal level of everyday trauma that happens. So if you want, feel free to, if you want to share my email address, it's my last name dot my first name @gmail. So fayyad.ahmed@gmail. Feel free to reach out to me if you have a more specific question, sister, and I can help guide you with that. And I did want to share, can I share my screen really quick? Would that be possible?
Yeah, you should have that option on your Zoom.
Okay. So can you see this?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay. So this is the wheel of emotions that I was talking about earlier. Most people have that like inner circle of like fear, anger, disgust, sadness, happiness, surprise, and bad. Those are the feelings that when you ask somebody, it's like, how do you feel? I feel sad. Okay, well, what is it that you really feel? So it kind of breaks it up into, okay, I feel hurt. Okay, well, let's break it down. Well, I feel really embarrassed for something I did, and so on and so forth. So if you just Google wheel of emotions, this will pop up. I highly recommend print it out, share it with yourself, share it with your spouse. If you're in a relationship, sit with your spouse and talk to them about it. If you know you have children, teach your kids how to identify these emotions, just so that you have a higher level of emotional intelligence so that you're able to deal with things better by identifying what they are. It's kind of like if you imagine going to the emergency room and the doctors are like, you look hurt, let's take you to the OR. Well, if they don't identify what kind of hurt it is, I hope they don't operate on you. So they really, really need to know what kind of hurt it is that you're at before they take you to the emergency room or to the operation room. So I'm going to stop that and I will end with that so people can, inshallah, go back to their ibadah and everything.
Okay, Jazakallah khairan. Barakallahu fiki, Sister Amal. Thank you for that very enlightening talk. Alhamdulillah, that's actually very beneficial for us to help us maybe improve being in touch with our emotions as we go through the Quran, especially, and as we go through our ibadah, inshallah, in this month. So, Jazakallah khairan for everybody tuning in. May Allah reward you for your commitment to tuning into this program, inshallah. We also are going to have a Qiyam al-Layl program at 11 p.m., inshallah ta'ala. So if you are awake, please join us for that. And bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, it'll be a blessed night. So we'd like to end with Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you, and may God bless each and every single one of you.
Thank you, you're the lifesaver. Everyone say this dua really quickly. Allahumma shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli.
Ameen. We're live. Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Welcome. Thank you guys for joining our first ICC virtual qiyam. We are really thrilled and excited to have you guys. Alhamdulillah, today I have an amazing group of people that are going to be having a really interesting conversation. But first, inshallah, we want to start the dua, the session with a dua. And Asil Atallah from Zaytuna College will be giving us a beautiful dua, inshallah.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Ya Allah, please reward everyone who has put in time and effort into making this gathering possible. Ya Allah, allow this gathering to have blessings and allow people to benefit from it. Ya Allah, please allow us to grow closer to you and your religion in this blessed month. Ya Allah, allow our hearts to be connected even though we can't be together in person. Ya Allah, grant every individual growth and success and ease in this Ramadan, and allow us to gather again together soon. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.
Thank you so much, Asi. Thank you so much for that. It was beautiful. Alhamdulillah, mashallah. Okay, so we're going to start with a really quick introduction about who our wonderful speakers are for tonight. So ladies first, as always, we're going to start with Asil. Asil, please give a brief intro of who you are, what you're doing right now in your life, and give us your favorite name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's 99 names. Go.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Asil Atallah, and I'm currently a junior at Zaytuna College. So I'm entering my last year, and inshallah after that, I'm really interested in pursuing something in mental health and psychology, inshallah, going down that path. My favorite name of Allah, the one that I think I've just been connecting to a lot in this past year is Al-Latif. You know, how do you translate lutf? Gentle and soft and kind. And I think that, especially in like this difficult time that we're in, to feel Allah's lutf in every situation is something that's so special. So yeah, thank you, Hlayhel, for putting this together.
No, of course. Thank you for joining. Okay, now we have Tabarak. Go ahead.
Hey, Layla, assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Tabarak. I'm studying health policy at Arizona State University, graduating in about a week. So I feel everyone struggle. Quarantine graduations, woohoo. The name that came to my mind right away was Ar-Rahman, the most merciful. I think just when anything's low, just when life pushes you, I just remember Allah's mercy and that in this time there's ease.
SubhanAllah. Thank you so much for sharing that. And SubhanAllah, we're almost coming to an end to the last 10 days, the first days of Ramadan, which are like awwalahu rahma, the beginning of it is rahma and like mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's beautiful. Thank you, Tabarak. All right, Salwa.
Okay, assalamu alaikum everyone. I'm Salwa. I think I'm the youngest one here. I'm a freshman at ASU and I'm doing a double major in psychology and neuroscience, and like I want to get into the mental health field such as like Al-Sid. And I think my favorite name is probably Al-Alim. I don't know why. It's my favorite. Yeah.
It's beautiful. MashaAllah. All right, now boys get the spotlight. We will start with Ridwan. Go ahead.
Hey, assalamu alaikum everybody. I was in Arizona 2.5 years ago and I moved out to San Antonio, Texas. And I've adapted and grown close to the Muslim community here. So I know today's topic is about friendship. So I have my own little stories and trial and error about that whole shenanigan. My favorite name of Allah, I literally have to Google it right now because I forgot what the Arabic translation was, was Al-Bari, which is somebody who is like the changer or the evolver. I'm sure there's a lot of very specific connotations of the word, but I just find it really interesting and I feel like it applies to my life at the moment. So
MashaAllah, that's beautiful. Ayman, tfaddal, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, my name is Ayman. I also was I graduated from ASU with and now I work in self-driving technology. And my favorite word as of right now is al-mu'min and al-muhaymin. Muhaymin more just because in my life right now, like having and I think it relates a little bit to all of us. Al-muhaymin translates to the overseer and the one who watches over us, basically. And I think during this time, especially, we can all have this understanding that regardless, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who's steering the ship, and we might not know where it's going to go, but there's an ease that comes with it, knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to take care of us all.
That's beautiful, subhanAllah. That's kind of similar to mine. My favorite name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, well, today's favorite that I really liked is As-Samad. And I thought it was really interesting because I always think about different names, but I've never thought about As-Samad because, and the beauty of that word is that it's just showing you the independency of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like when I was learning about it, it was like, think about the richest person ever or the most successful person ever. They only got to that point through people, through the help of people, through the use of people, everything. They depended on other people at some point in time, except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like he never needed anybody, and he is the one that's independent, and we all depend on him and rely on him. So I thought that was a really beautiful thing that I learned today. All right, and then assalamu alaikum. My name is Layla Jamal. I am an ASU graduate. I graduated in 2018, and I'm currently doing a gap year, inshallah, trying to pursue medical school, and I'm doing research. So that's a little bit about all of us. Inshallah, you have like a diverse group of people with different backgrounds and different passions. So also we have Ustaz Omar Tawil with us. He is behind the cameras, and we have Ahmed Khalil also, who we really do want to thank because they have been helpful in facilitating this hangout. So as you guys a little bit heard from Ridwan, we were saying that inshallah today's conversation that we wanted to have was about like friendships. So friendships are something that we all at one point of it in our lives have like had, I hope, and we've experienced. So I want to hear from you guys. Like, what does the value of friendship have on your life, and how has it impacted who you are today? And guys, the way we're gonna have this conversation, it can go boy, girl, vice versa, anything. Like, just feel free to hop on, and it's just literally a dialogue. It's a conversation that we're trying to have. It's a discussion. So inshallah, we all learn from one another. So anyone have anything to share about how friendships have formed who they are today, how they have impacted them? What value does friendship have on you today, or to you today?
And I think that's a good question. I started becoming more aware about like my surroundings more now, like throughout my college career. Like I've been more specific about who I want to be around, because like growing up, it's like you're following what your parents or they want you to be around. But like now in college, it's like the world's your oyster type of thing, where I wanted to be around people that motivate, that inspire me, that could bring me closer to Allah, that I could joke around with. So just kind of for me, like friendship is that the way to balance my life, I guess, so that I'm not just working all the time, that I have some sort of way of exhausting my energy.
It's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with Tabarak there. And just an extension of that, I mean, I feel like the friendships I've made completely almost define me to a certain extent. Of course, you're your own person, but the people you're with, you're gonna affect them, and they're gonna affect you. And whatever path they're on is the path you're also gonna be on. So I just find that having good circle of friends is the difference between like having a really great life, having a mediocre life, or not having such a great life at all, right?
Did you make that realization? Like, at what point did you make that realization, Ridwan, that like having a good group of friends is really something that impacted your life or had significant impact on your life?
Just growing up, you kind of always think about it in the background. Sometimes it's not so apparent in high school, it becomes a little more apparent in college when you see people kind of branching out or sticking to their same friend groups, or kind of mixing and seeing the paths that different people go down. Just I went to ACA, Muslim high school, called like for my entire life, and I had a good group of people around me then, and just seeing how that helped me. And then in college, when I was kind of branching out and meeting a lot of new people, always choosing the right people to hang out with and the right people to have influences from, and that whole shebang.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you guys. Like, I feel like you're like the people you're friends with really like represent who you are. And I like realized that especially at the end of high school, when like because I went to like a public school, so most of the people weren't Muslim, and I was like the only hijabi in my whole entire grade. And most of my like white friends started like drinking and like doing all that stuff. And I realized like since I couldn't do that stuff, it was really like hard on me. And like I realized myself like distancing myself and feeling like really extremely lonely in high school, because I didn't really have like a good like solid group of like Muslim friends, but also at school I didn't have like a solid group of like my white friends, because I really couldn't hang out with them outside of school. And so I just like kind of felt lonely. And like now that I'm in college, I really have like a sense of like good friendships and stuff, because I met like a lot of Muslim people, and like I realized like the beauty of having Muslim friends, because like they understand you more, and like they remind you to like pray. Like after class, me and my friend always meet up at like the MU and we always pray together, and like it really makes me happy. Like I remember one Friday at school, I saw like a group of hijabis like hanging out, and I was like Muslim gang and stuff. Like it just made me so happy, because in high school I really didn't have that type of like, you know, Muslim community around me. So it's really important to like find the right group of friends, and like, you know.
Yeah, and it's crazy how you said that. Like, mashallah, like that's awesome that you started distancing yourself from your friends in high school. Because I remember back in high school, I was dying and trying to do everything I could possibly do to fit in. and not distance myself from them, whether they were drinking, whatever they were doing. In my head, it's like, you guys are doing what you're doing. As long as I'm not doing it, I'm fine. You know what I mean? But honestly, like, I'd be lying if I said it didn't affect me and it didn't make me think of like trying, for example, or like, why is it haram? Why is it like, you know, I feel like just being in that, subhanAllah, my parents used to always tell me, like, being in that environment, or like they would say, it's not you we don't trust, it's the environment we don't trust. And I never understood what that meant until, alhamdulillah, like later on I was able to reflect back and understand truly how impactful environments are on you. And like, I feel like oftentimes we overestimate our strength in terms of like, we think we are able to withhold from things, and we think that we as an individual can be put in these kind of environments and not be swayed. Anyone else like relate to that, or thoughts and ideas on that?
Yeah, so I just want to quickly mention a Arabic phrase about friendship that like as I was growing up, like it always comes back to me as sahib sahib.
I love it, yes.
Yeah, and like you like obviously you hear it growing up, you're like whatever, and then you
translate it. I tried translating and it's so ugly. It doesn't rhyme. I thought I was like
you get carried away basically by your friends, right?
Yeah, the friend dragger. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah,
Like
so basically,
your friend is the one who
your friends are, you are basically. That's I think the English phrase.
Sahib.
Yeah, and like you don't understand that until you're put in that situation where your friends are doing something and then you catch yourself, you're like, oh wait, I don't usually do stuff like this, why am I doing this? And you're like, oh, it's because my friend group is doing something like this and I should not be doing this. And it's just such an interesting thing to like realize in the moment. And it's honestly like, subhanAllah, it's really crazy how if you do not put a lot of effort into figuring out who your friends are early on, you will get swept away and you might not even realize it. So you might spend 10 years hanging out with these people and then you realize that, hey, these people are not looking out for my best interest, they don't care for me, and all that stuff. So it's really important to just put in effort to figure out that these are my actual friends, and then you can have like acquaintances who are not like, you know, don't have as much weight as a friend does.
Anyone else?
Okay, I was gonna say really quick, like the reason I feel like we get like so, like as he said, like I don't know exactly what he said, but something about like how like we catch ourselves like doing the same thing our friends are doing and stuff like that is because like our friends like normalize everything. Like if you see your friends drinking so much, you're gonna be like, okay, it's normal, it's not that bad. And so like our friends kind of like set the boundaries of what's okay and what's not. And when we see everyone else like doing something, it's kind of like they kind of like normalize it so much to the point where we don't see why it's so bad. We kind of just like start questioning like, why is this bad if everyone else is doing it? Like all my friends are doing it. And obviously like you think your friends are good people. And so you're like, okay, if good people are doing it, then why can't I kind of, I don't know. Does that make sense?
SubhanAllah, that's crazy because, okay, so there's a hadith, I think, that says like, it says, Umar, please back me up, but basically that there's a hadith that like, if you're gonna do fahisha, like do it secretly. And so like, and to me at first it was like, it doesn't make sense to me, you know, like I was like, why do it secretly? Why not just do it publicly? Like, why are you afraid of the people? But the logic behind that hadith was, so if you're gonna do something, when you're doing it publicly, there's a sense of you normalizing it. And I never thought about that. And so now that you think that you said like that your friends, whenever they do things, and there's like this sense of creating like this normal culture around whatever it is that they're doing is really, it's crazy. It's true.
Yeah. And just to build off of that point, how often are you in the situation where you're with a really religious friend and you do things that are kind of a little sketchy and you just feel bad? You're like, you know what? Like maybe I shouldn't be doing that. Like that's
we're the opposite. We're the opposite. You start being extra halal or extra good.
Exactly. And that's not to say that you should necessarily feel like that around your friends. Like you should feel judged. But at the same time, if they're holding themselves to a higher standard, you start to automatically be like, you know what? Maybe I should do the same thing. Like maybe I shouldn't be doing these other things. So your friends definitely make you.
Yeah.
I think it's, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'll say
before.
I was just going to say it's really interesting because So I go to college out of state. And so what ended up happening, I noticed, especially like my freshman and sophomore year, is I'd go and I'd be surrounded by like these wonderful people, and I'd become like a very different person, and I'd grow in certain ways. And then I'd come back here and like, not to say that like, oh, my friends are any worse or better in either place, like mashallah, like beautiful people everywhere. Calm down, Nina. But what I mean is that like, they're different people, and they like, every person has different ways of practicing the deen, right? And so then I noticed, I was like, I'm not being authentic to myself at all. Like I'm sitting here, and when I'm at Zaytun, I'm, doing this, and I'm adding this, and I'm doing this, and I come back to Phoenix, and like, I drop those things and I start doing different things. And I noticed that my standards were fluctuating. And so I think another really important thing about your friendships is that you also have friendship with yourself. Like you have, you know yourself, and you know your own standards, so that you're not necessarily not open to being and learning from other people, but that you know your own values, you know your own personal like areas of like, oh, I want to grow here and I want to progress here. And so knowing yourself, and so that you and the people around you are not just like, oh, influencing each other and swaying with the wind, that you're grounded in something. And I've noticed, at least, like with my relationship with Layla, for example, like, alhamdulillah, we've been best friends now for what, like, I want to say like 15 years. Like it's been, and throughout that time, the one thing that has like kept our relationship stable is like being grounded in our love for this deen and our love for God. And having that as a foundation, it won't change you as a person. I find that you can be like authentically you when you're with them.
That's beautiful. Hafidh, how would you suggest or recommend the first step to like developing or establishing that kind of friendship with yourself, and like especially to people, let's say college age and late high school? Like how would you, when we live in a society that if you like you're dying to fit in and be swayed, what we were like, how you were saying?
I believe there is a saying, and please, if anyone knows differently, please correct me. It goes, "Man arifa rabbahu arifa nafsahu." So whoever knows his Lord knows himself. And so I think the first step on these things is always like building a solid relationship with God and knowing what God wants of you, right? Because at the end of the day, like, we have a certain recognition that like every action we do is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the long run. And so knowing what he wants of us allows us to know like, okay, how am I going to proceed on my day-to-day actions? How am I'm changing my environment now. I'm going to ASU, or I'm starting a new job, or whatever it is, that I have a solid relationship with God, and that allows me to know like what he expects of me. And so now I know how to act, and now I know how to interact with the people around me. And so, yeah, that comes in like steps of like asking God, like just making a very sincere dua, like, Allah, show me what you want of me, and show me how you want me to be with other people. And like really establishing that like daily consistent relationship with him.
It's crazy that you mentioned that saying, because when you mentioned that, in my head ring the verses in the Quran. I'm probably misquoting, but when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says like وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا نَسَوْا أَنفُسَهُم, like a big characteristic that I was reading, like every alhamdulillah, like when I'm reading Quran during Ramadan, like a big characteristic, a big hallmark or banner for those people that lost their deen or lost dunya, they're like lost the whole point of this dunya, is that they've lost themselves within this process. And I feel like that ties back to like us trying to fit in. We just lose ourselves because we're just trying to follow and not like genuinely figure out who we are. MashaAllah, that's beautiful. Thank you. Anyone else have any comments or some suggestions to give?
Yeah, a really short one. There's a story of the man who had killed 99 people, and then he had killed the 100th, and then he went to the next sheikh and he's asked like, hey, will I ever be forgiven? And the sheikh, out of his wisdom, was like, yes, but you need to get out of here. Something that somebody had once pointed out about that is that he was asked to change his entire environment and start anew, right? So if you're in an environment that is allowing you to be a certain way, then you need to leave it completely, right? Even with addictions and things, what's the first thing that they have a lot of addicts do is completely change their environment, right? So stop hanging out with the people who do those things. Stop being in the same houses, the same locations where those things can happen. Completely change your environment, aka your friends, your social surroundings, and you can be a different person. Even when I moved from Arizona to here in Texas, I found myself allowing myself to be completely different because I was just in a new environment. You're like, what? I'm in a new place. Nobody knows how I actually was. Like, I can be a better person. It's easier to be a better person. It's weird how changing like where you are and the places you're in changes you as a person.
Yeah, and as you said, like for healthy habits, for example, if you're trying to cut out sugar, if you're trying to cut out, take all those M&Ms out of your pantry. Don't have a bag of Oreos or whatever they're called, like a pack of Oreos just chilling there. You not expect yourself to eat it. You're so right. So okay, how do you guys? I want to hear from everyone. Like, how would you do this in a polite way? Because also I feel like a lot of times we fear hurting other people when we're leaving those environments. Anyone feel that, or am I overthinking it?
I agree with you, and I think it's important, obviously, to be sensitive to people's feelings. But at the same time, if these are your true friends, you need to be able to talk to them in a way and be very honest with them. Because if you're not going to be honest with these people who you consider your friends, you're not going to be honest with really anyone. So I think, yes, be sensitive in the way you speak with them, but I think it's important to talk to them and have a conversation and be like, listen, I would like to improve and I like you as a friend, but I want you to grow with me, but that's the choice obviously you have to make on your own. Obviously not exactly like that, but something along those lines, because it's if you consider them a friend and you want them with you on this journey, it's important to have a conversation, but be polite. And I mean, Allahu Alam, I've seen it go both ways. I've seen it where the person's like, hey man, like this is me and I'm going to continue to do this, and you end up losing a friend, or subhanAllah, you end up growing together with this friend. So it just depends on the circumstance.
Yeah, going off of that, I feel like if a friend doesn't like agree with like your values and like why you want to like distance yourself from them, or like if you talk to them and you're like, okay, like what you're doing is wrong, and like I just don't want to surround myself around that. And if they start getting mad at you and stuff, then they're not a true friend. Like you don't need them. You want like to have friends that support you through everything and through every decision you make. You know what I mean? And so if they get mad at you, that just like shows what kind of person they are, and like that's someone that you don't want in your life. So I feel like they should be able to understand.
Yeah, that's a good point, Sidwa. And I think like, I guess the question is like, how do you know if an environment is good or bad for you? Because sometimes you could be in an environment for so long and not be aware like this environment actually is harming me. Like for me, like the way that I test my environments and whether it's a healthy environment for me, like my litmus test is to see if I could do my ibadahs. Like, is it easy for me to be like, oh, I need to go pray, regardless of like if it's a Muslim or non-Muslim environment? How comfortable do I feel like vocalizing that? Not that you should ever kind of let anything get in the way of you doing your ibadahs, but that's just like me between myself. Like, am I feeling anxious, saying like, oh, I need to take a minute to take a break, whether it's my job or my class or whatever it may be. And then sometimes like in some environments, you just know, like it's not a big deal. Like Adi, like we're all actually gonna go pray together, or we're all gonna like, some environments encourage that type of behavior. And that to me is like the biggest sign to see like if this environment is healthy. Because at the end of the day, like we have a responsibility for ourselves, and we shouldn't let like our friends or a group of people get in the way of that. And responding to like Layla's like point earlier with like, how do you let people know? Sometimes like silence, you don't need to say anything, you could just be silent. Like you don't have to, and just slowly get out of someone's life or whatever it may be. And I think that way you don't have to get into that like fear of like conflict or whatever it may be. And getting away in that manner also doesn't mean that you don't wish the best for the person. So it's also kind of being clear about what you want in that situation.
Oh yeah, that's Beautifully said. Thank you for that. Okay, so also for those who are watching us, please feel free to shoot us some questions, engage with us in any way possible. We're here for you guys. We really want to have a conversation with you as well. These are like, think of them as your 2 a.m. deep conversations at ICC when we used to have qiyam. Okay, so inshallah, I have one more question. Is anyone else struggling with making friends as an adult? Well, right now, like for those who are in schools, for example, I feel like it's a little easier, but for those who aren't in school, so for example, I think Ayman and Ridwan, like how do you guys make friends in workspaces? How do you go about doing that?
Oh man. Okay, so when I moved here, I didn't know a soul at all. I moved here literally because I got a job out here. I was like, all right, there's a job out here. I'll move out. So one of the first things that I did is, and this is something I learned from my dad, is one, I made dua for good company, like, Ya Allah, give me a good circle here. And secondly, go straight to the masjid during Jummah and just like talk to people or see what's up. You'll get a place to live, like a week's worth of food and whatever you need almost instantly, guaranteed. And I remember one day I went there for some program and I went a little early to like talk some people up and see who was around in the community. And so he's probably watching this right now. I go to him and I tap on the shoulder. It's like, hey, I haven't grabbed lunch yet. Do you know any good sushi places nearby? He's like, yeah, there's one across the street. He turns around and walks off. He does not take the hint at all, not even a little bit. He's actually my best friend now, which is the funniest thing. But just putting yourself out there and going to places where you know there's most likely going to be good people and feeling it out and putting yourself out there, you're going to eventually get a good circle. I mean, it's definitely more difficult as an adult because when you're in school and you're with the same people for like an entire semester, it just kind of happens like a little more fluidly, but it's definitely a doable thing, but not easy. What do you think, Eamon?
So obviously it's a little different, and for me it's even more it's a different situation because I'm also married. So the circles are different, but for me, I have a very difficult time making friends at work because I don't want to make friends at work. I am very content with I guess the outside outside of work friends that I don't really engage in that. But other than work, like when it comes to, like you said, with one like masajid and stuff, like I really enjoy meeting new people and talking to people, and it's just super entertaining for me, and I love that I do exactly what you said with one. Like I'll go up to someone if I see, like especially here because I live here. I've been living here all my life. So if I see someone who I don't necessarily recognize, like I'll eye them for a little bit and see if they're with anyone I know I can talk to. And if not, I'll sometimes go introduce myself and be like, hey, how's it going? My name's Eamon, this and that. And kind of like gauge it from there and see what the situation is like. And just because I enjoy doing that kind of stuff. And it was really, really easy also in college for most of you guys who are in college or going to be in college soon. It's honestly very easy. You see a person in class, you see random people, like wherever you're going, I'm sure it's a big school, you see so many people, there's so many things that everyone has in common. It's super easy to get a conversation going. And then from there, building it and seeing if you have an opportunity to become like friends, you know. Alhamdulillah, like all of my friends are all people I went to school with. A couple like people who I can really like, if I'm in trouble, I can give them a call and they will come to my aid, alhamdulillah. So it's honestly just putting the time for the connections, and after that, honestly, just keeping up your relationship. It's difficult, it's different now because I am married, but I mean, alhamdulillah, it's honestly a blast to do that, to have that experience, alhamdulillah.
So
Kind of,
no, go to that.
I was kind of curious, like some people may be struggling finding good friends in college. What suggestions do you have for those people? Like, how do you go and find your tribe?
I think it has a lot to do with trial and error. As I, like my freshman year in college, like I think literally anyone who would say hi to me, I would go and like we would hang out and like whatever. So I was really, really open. But as like I went through my my years, the circle started getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And like after I graduated, the people who I really hung out with was very, very limited. I aligned with them necessarily agree with everything, but I honestly think it's trial and error. There are people who, like, for example, freshman year of college were like, these were my friends no matter what, and now subhanAllah, like we've drifted apart. So it really is trial and error, and you don't necessarily have to have your friends be the same people all the time. People grow at different paces. I've had friends that like when I was younger, we were super good friends and we grew distant, and then now we've reconnected. So honestly, I think it is trial and error, and just understanding that you don't need to be friends with a person all the time 100%. It just depends on your growth and your aspect in life at the time. Yeah, I don't know if that really answered your question.
All right, guys. Thank you, Ayman, for that. We have a question on Facebook. Alhamdulillah, Jazakallah khairan for Brother Omar Ismail for posting the question on Facebook. The question is, I'm going to read it to you all. Is there a way to keep your non-Muslim friends from influencing you and providing positive influence through your actions, through your morals towards your friends? As we know, da'wah comes in many different forms, such as actual preaching or your own actions that you present with people in many other different forms. That's a beautiful question, Brother Omar. Thank you so much for sharing that and asking that question. It's a really important question. Who wants to take that on?
I can take it. That I've been talking a lot. I kind of want to hear some other voices, you know.
We can hear from multiple people, but go for it, Ridwan.
Honestly, and this is from experience, be a good person, but don't do anything special. There's nothing more annoying than like if they ask you about Islam and stuff, like tell them about it, but like it shouldn't be a forced thing. I mean, how many times do you know somebody who maybe like of a different religion who's not Muslim, and everything they do, they're like, and did you know that I was so and so, and did you know I believed in that? Just be yourself. Your actions will show through. If they're curious, answer their questions. Maybe even introduce them to Islam in a non like pushful way. But I don't think there's anything special that you necessarily need to do there. It can get really weird, and people will stop hanging out with you, because I've seen it if you try to be too preachy. So I think it's a careful line.
I feel like though part of the question is asking like, how do they not get influenced themselves as well? So like they want to be a part like of that environment with the intention of providing da'wah to those people through just being themselves, which is beautiful, mashallah. But the question is like, how do you not get influenced and not end up like, God forbid, like doing bad things or doing sinful actions?
I think I can kind of answer part of this question, but like, I think it's important before you get into any friendship to know your values and know your boundaries. So like when you come to like a situation where you're about to get influenced, you like can stand back and go like, okay, what's the point of this friendship? Like, what are my values? What are my boundaries? So just, it's really important to like emphasize like boundaries and like your values in a friendship. And like looking back at the bigger picture, you have to know like, why am I getting myself into this friendship? You know? And so I think just like knowing your boundaries and everything is the number one thing before you get into a friendship with like a non-Muslim.
I'll add something to this as well. I think, yeah, knowing your own boundaries, but also oftentimes making those things known to your non-Muslim friends. In high school, and especially like Salwa, you touched upon this, like, right, like as you start getting in, especially into junior and senior year, you'll notice that people start, well, dating is already part of the culture, but they'll start like drinking more and going to parties, and, you know, we don't participate in things like that. And I remember like I had like a few serious conversations with some of my friends where I was very clear about these are my personal values. This is what I believe in. This is the way that I am. And like being very clear about that, I noticed from that point on, like whenever I'd like be a part of a conversation, those friends would stay away from those topics. They wouldn't necessarily invite me to the things that involve those things, but they would say like, oh, Asli, let's go get breakfast together, right? And so it's being really clear and upfront about your values, because if you want true friends, they're going to be people that respect those values. You don't want to surround yourself with people who know your values and say, I don't care, like we're going to negatively influence you, right? And so I think, yeah, like making those things known. And something that's come out of that is that like when people want, there's something really special and pure about abstaining from these things, right? And I noticed that people recognize that. And so they'll come to you when they want to have a good influence, like when they want to have a good conversation, they want like a pure conversation, they will come to you. I've had friends come and ask me about what Islam's like perception of heaven and hell was. And it was the most random conversation, but it had the most beautiful results. And I think that comes from like, okay, being really clear on who you are internally, making that known externally, but like Ridwan said, not being so like invasive in every conversation, like these are my beliefs.
I kind of want to piggyback a little bit off of what Aziz said. And I think like the experience that you had, mashallah, is really awesome. I do also want to mention for the people who are like their friendships aren't necessarily that easy, where a person can necessarily, or their friends can be so accommodating like yours. To be honest, at least in my opinion, it's very difficult to have non-Muslim friends. Just I think as your like full-time friends, I guess, just to like for lack of better words. Do not align, and it's hard to live a life with people who you're going to be seeing and hanging out with and talking about everything with when your day-to-day values do not align. That being said, like Asi's experience, it's not like impossible, but I do think that it's important to have a good core group of Muslim friends, just for some kind of like balance, or like just to touch back on and feel that, I guess, religious the religiousness in friendship, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Sorry, Ayman, are you done?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I agree with Ayman, because I feel like even just having sometimes deep conversations about something that you might be struggling with yourself, with faith, and like, for example, tawakkul, the concept of tawakkul, for example, just being able to have a conversation with someone that you're struggling with letting go of, controlling, and all that jazz is insanely important. And I feel like you will only be able to have a fruitful conversation from your Muslim friend, if that makes sense, because they have that background. It's kind of like, I don't know, I've thought about this. I don't know, I feel like there's this common ground between the two that you have. So it makes the conversation easier, and it makes it, I think, a little safer too, and more fruitful. And that's not being said that like you can't explain, for example, the concept of tawakkul to someone, but if you yourself are going through a trouble, like you're troubleshooting with this concept right now, you don't want to be sitting there and explaining it to other people. You want to be having someone that's going to have your back and know how to direct you into the right direction, I guess. So yeah, and then we also have another question. So if you have an introverted personality, how do you make friends? Like, it's very difficult to approach people, but you also have, like, the word insan, human being, is to be from, it comes from the root word of, shout out to Good Tree, NSL, which is to be social. So you do want to have some sort of, or just someone, at least one person that you can fall back onto, you can call up, check in on. So as an introvert, anyone have any experiences they'd like to share about that?
So growing up, I was extremely introverted, as a lot of you probably know. You just have to be uncomfortable and be willing to go through that process. It's hard and it's scary, but start off small, go to comfortable places and try to make friends there, and then move from there. But it's just much harder as an introvert, for sure.
Sometimes also, to add on to that, maybe going into places where they cater that environment. So maybe join a cause or a purpose or volunteer And you naturally realize, because you all are coming together for one cause, that you're building up friendships in the most natural way. So it's not necessarily like going up to somebody, but it just kind of happens organically.
I feel like also having like having like something you want to talk about prepared in your head before you approach people. So like thinking about something you want to talk about, or thinking about like something you think you might have mutually in common with that person you're approaching might ease the nerves of making a new friend. Also, I think something to take into consideration, when you're approaching someone, you're not the only one that's nervous. I think the other party is also nervous. So I don't know if that helps also the process, but just don't feel like you're alone in this. Maybe there's different levels of nervousness, but they too might be feeling it.
I think something else, I'm not necessarily an introverted person. I'm pretty extroverted, but I'll feel sometimes shy going into like a new environment, like, like a new community that I haven't been a part of, or I'm at a gathering and I don't know anyone there, but I'm with a friend. And so sitting down and having an honest conversation with maybe the one person you do know, and being like, listen, I'm interested in getting to know people, but I'm generally more shy when I don't know people, or I'm more introverted, so I don't feel as comfortable. Do you mind like being with me tonight and like helping me out in these kinds of conversations? Because yeah, a lot of times you'll notice, like, even if it's not someone that you're very close to, like, yeah, that people are always willing to help and to be that, buffer for, coming out of your shell.
Beautiful, thank you guys. And then we also have another question about advice for putting the hijab on in middle school. So how to make it easier process for putting the hijab on. So this is probably for the girls. Bye guys. Please give us, anyone want to share anything, advice on that, or tips on how to start wearing a hijab in middle school? So I think the first tip, honestly, is get a solid group of friends. The topic of our discussion. I think friends play a huge role in being able and being confidently enough to take that step. MashaAllah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help you and make it easy for you and bless you and really radiate you with light when you do take this step, and make it easy for you and send you a support group. The hijab is a beautiful journey, but you definitely do need a support group to help you through, whether it's your mom, whether it's your friends. But I think in middle school, you're probably going to value your friends' opinions and you're going to want their validation. So try to get a good group of friends that would encourage you to wearing the hijab. I feel like I remember alhamdulillah, me and Asil really played a big role for me in wearing my hijab. And when I went, and subhanAllah, like when I moved to a different country because I was here for the summer, and I went back to Syria. So it was a completely different group of friends. I love my people in Syria, but I did not get the support that I had over here, subhanAllah. So I know your struggle if you don't have a support group, but try your best. Reach out to us. Wallahi, we would love to be there for you. Tabarak, Asil, and Salwa are all amazing, beautiful individuals. And I think we would love to be that support for you. And just try your best, whether it's through Sunday school, just coming to community masjid events. Try to find someone that can have your back for this and support, because that's what a friend is, honestly. At the end of the day, if they're not supporting you, I don't know what they're doing, truthfully.
I'll add something to this. I want to first acknowledge that it is a struggle. It is something that it takes dedication, and it does take sacrifice. I know for me, when I put it on, I had to make sacrifices, and especially now in like the changing political climate, like you are openly showing yourself as Muslim, which has some struggles, but has a lot of really beautiful things as well. But I think for me, what was really special about it was that in every sacrifice that you make for God, in every single sacrifice you make, he gives you abundantly in return. There has never been a time where I have struggled for something in Islam that I have not felt the mercy and the gentleness and the love of God pouring onto me right after that. You know, that's something I think as you consider this more, like really understanding like this is something for God. This is, you know, like whatever reward you get from the dunya is great, but this ultimately is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he is going to give you in this life and he's going to give you in the hereafter, inshallah. And so really making that your intention and asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for your support in this struggle, because it is. But again, God is not going to leave you. You come walking towards God, he comes running to you. And so, yeah, grounding yourself in that and having that like be like a connection to God, that like whenever I put my hijab on, like I'm like, oh, okay, God's got my back. Yeah.
Allahu Akbar. SubhanAllah, that was beautiful.
Real quick, I know that was, she was talking about hijab, but I just wanted to take a moment to say that what she's talking about applies, I think, to everything religiously. So it's not just about hijab. I think it's about like everyone can relate to that kind of that feeling. So I just wanted to quickly point that out. Go ahead.
Exactly. And I'm going to piggyback on that and say that, subhanAllah, exactly what you said, whatever you let go of for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he gives you multiple of and better of what you let go. And that applies to the bad friend. For example, if we're in a bad friend situation, if we don't have a good friend to support us, Allah subhanahu, and we let go of that friend only because we know, like, honestly, let's be real, like, when we do have a bad friend, we kind of do know. It's not that we're oblivious or we don't know. Like, we do know. And what and the worst part is that they are your friend. Regardless of what they're doing, they are your friend and you do have love for them. But when you, subhanAllah, give up or just distance yourself, obviously I'm not saying be disrespectful or rude to anybody, but if you give up on that friendship because it's unhealthy to your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses you with so many more numerous friendships that are going to make you feel way better than this previous friendship that you might felt. Because I feel like we cling on before we let go of something, and we always think, I'm never going to find something just like this. I'm never going to find like this kind of friendship that I have with this friend. Like, regardless of what they're going through or like the route they're taking, we still cherish good memories, and that's fine. Keep those memories, but like, you do need to draw a line and like be able to take yourself out of environments that are unhealthy to you. SubhanAllah, thank you guys, everyone, for sharing that. That was beautiful. Shukran, everyone. Thank you all so much. Okay, last question we're going to quickly wrap up with is, during these times of quarantine and being in lockdown, how are you all keeping in touch with your fellow friends?
FaceTime mostly. I think FaceTime is really important. Now we have like a group FaceTime feature, so you can have your whole squad on. And also Netflix Party. You should download that if you haven't. You can watch shows together.
That's cute. I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's a lot of apps out there right now that are like online board games and stuff. So like, we'll be like playing a different board game every night. I remember for the first 3 weeks of quarantine, everybody was FaceTiming every single night, even when they normally wouldn't. And honestly, like when you get older and you're working and you're still doing school and you have like 5 million things and you can't see everybody, but now suddenly quarantine hits and now you can. I felt a lot closer to a lot of like my friends out of state because I can't see anybody physically. So now everybody's only one screen away. And my San Antonio friends are meeting my Arizona friends, and it's just the whole thing. But yeah, there's a lot of ways to connect, just connecting with people regularly. And also being sure to not overextend yourself socially and take time for yourself as well. I know the questions about like keeping in touch with your friends, but also like keeping in touch with yourself is super important. But yeah, there's a lot of ways to connect for sure.
I would say also scheduling time with friends. Like, don't hesitate to be that one friend that's like, okay, let me get my calendar out, let me get my planner out, and let me plan a time to make time with friends. And it also, it's so nice to be sometimes the friend that reaches out, because the person that's on the receiving end of like, wow, you want to hang out with me, or wow, you thought of me, that means the world. And if you create that habit within your friends, Yani, it would be so normal to be like, I miss you, or let's hang out. And there it wouldn't be any barrier in that friendship. So make it fun too. Like if you're going to call, dress up like as if you're going out.
You're so cute. Queen of scheduling and creativity, Tabarak. Mashallah, that's like I think I heard a podcast about the beauty that's like an Islamic thing, like making, I think it's like either it was like the benefit of dhikr, like you saying like dhikr, Allah, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions you when you mention him. And so like how beautiful would it be when you mention, like when your friend hits you up that they remembered you about something, how heartwarming is that feeling? And so subhanAllah, like in Islam, that's a root concept that we're encouraged to do, and to always make other people feel special and heard. All right, anyone else want to answer to that question?
I'll add something really quickly. Something a few of my friends and I are doing especially like in Ramadan, we're trying to take advantage of this mandated, quarantine, self-isolation situation, that we're all at home and we're not being able to go out and go to the masajid, but we all have goals that we want to achieve in this month. And so what we did is we actually, like a few days before Ramadan, we sat down and we all were sharing like goals that we had and things that we were like, I'm like, okay, I want to read, I want to do it. Like, I want to finish a khatam of the Quran. I want to pray Tarawih every night. I want to read the Quran translation. I want to do dhikr this amount of time, whatever it is. And like, that was helping us motivate each other. And now we're keeping each other accountable every single day. And on top of that, we do like, if we join on a call for about 15 minutes and one of us shares reflections from the Quran that we read like the day before or that day. So for example, you saw something like really beautiful and it stuck out with you and it resonated with you, so that you share it with other people. And it kind of just allows for like a group reflection. And so it's never too late to have to create those goals and to motivate each other. And for the rest of Ramadan, inshallah.
MashaAllah, that was beautiful, especially during these times. Thank you so much for adding that on. Okay,
We have
really
time for
quick.
one more? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I wanted to ask you guys what's one quality that you guys look in, but it has to be one word in a friend, and then we have to switch because Hafidh Malik Hlayhel will be reciting some Quran for us all today because it is a qiyam at the end of the day. So, but Ayman, do you want to say something?
No, I think we'll continue. We'll move on.
We'll move on. Okay, everyone. Okay, we're gonna start with Ridwan. Give one quality that you want in a friend and that you value most.
Oh God. Hold on.
You have to do this in less than a minute. Open, mashallah. Ayman.
In my current life situation, understanding.
Salwa.
I'm empathetic for sure.
Hafidh.
Truthful.
Yeah, Tabarak.
Kind.
Oh, mashallah. Honest and true. I mean, that's truthful, yeah. It's a synonym. Anyways, okay, so without further ado, thank you guys all so much. Please, everyone that's watching us on live, stay tuned. Inshallah, Hafidh Malik is so generous and he's gonna be reciting to us for some Quran, just a little longer. So please, everyone, stay online and get the benefit of beautiful recitation. Okay, go ahead, Malik, all yours.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Alaikum assalam, Malik.
Okay, inshallah, I'll read from Ayah 32 in Surah Al-Kahf until Ayah 44, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم واضرب لهم مثل الرجلين جعلنا لأحدهما جنتين من أعناب وحففناهما بنخل وجعلنا بينهما زرعا
كلتا الجنتين آتت أكلها ولم تظلم منه شيئا وفجرنا خلالهما نهرا وكان له ثمر فقال لصاحبه وهو يحاوره أنا أكثر منك مالا وأعز نفرا ودخل جنته وهو ظالم لنفسه قال ما أظن أن تبيد هذه أبدا وما أظن الساعة قائمة ولئن رددت إلى ربي لأجدن خيرا منها منقلبا قال له صاحبه وهو يحاوره أكفرت بالذي خلقك من تراب ثم من نطفة ثم سواك رجلا لكن هو الله ربي ولا أشرك بربي أحدا ولولا إذ دخلت جنتك قلت ما شاء الله لا قوة إلا بالله إن ترني أنا أقل منك مالا وولدا فعسى ربي أن يؤتيني خيرا من جنتك ويرسل عليها حسبانا من السماء فتصبح صعيدا زلقا أو يصبح ماؤها غورا فلن تستطيع له طلبا وأحيط بثمره فأصبح يقلب كفيه على ما أنفق فيها وهي خاوية على عروشها ويقول يا ليتني لم أشرك بربي أحدا ولم تكن له فئة ينصرونه من دون الله وما كان منتصرا هنالك الولاية لله الحق هو خير ثوابا وخير عقبا صدق الله العظيم.
Jazakallah khairan. Thank you so much. All right. This brings us to the end of our weekly qiyam with ICC. Everyone that's been watching, thank you guys so much for watching and joining us. It was really an honor for us to be here with you guys tonight. Inshallah that it was a beneficial night. Does anyone have anything they would like to say, last minute comments, remarks?
Wait, I just want to apologize. I think I accidentally said like white friends and I meant to say like non-Muslim versus Muslim friends because I know someone said something in the comments about it. I just want to like clarify that really quick.
Thank you so much, Salah. Thank you for clarifying that and making it clear. Yeah, alhamdulillah, everyone's Muslim. Not everyone's Muslim. Everyone, anyone can be a Muslim. That's what I was trying to say. Anyone can be a Muslim and anyone can be non-Muslim, whether regardless of your race. So thank you so much, Salwa, for making that clear. All right, just the last couple announcements. Sorry guys to keep you all holding over here. So please, everyone that's watching, ICC has amazing and great programs, mashallah, daily programs. So please subscribe to ICC on YouTube and Facebook to stay up to date with all the programs during Ramadan. And please, everyone, whoever's benefiting, and remember your community, remember us, and make donations to the masjid. The masjid really does rely on the donations during Shahr Ramadan, and it's an amazing time to be making these donations. So inshallah, please remember ICC in your donations. Every week we will have a qiyam on Saturday at this time. So from 11 p.m. to 12 p.m. and 12 a.m. inshallah, with different speakers. So this week was for the youth, which we had amazing, mashallah, incredible, inspiring group of people. And also, please, please, please participate in the hashtag Stronger Together ICC. So the hashtag will be daily posts of questions. So today, for example, it was like, what's your favorite one name from the 99 names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Please engage. We really do want to see your responses. We do want to hear from you guys. We want to be able to create that sense of community that alhamdulillah ICC has always been creating for us during this month. So it's really just for you guys. Thank you guys so much for those that have been participating. Okay, so just gonna read. And then tonight, since it is a qiyam, please guys, I know it's difficult, but alhamdulillah, there's no shaitan to like down us down, or what's it called, like make us lazy or pull us down or whatever. I don't know, English isn't my favorite language, but please try to take some time and pray 2 rak'ah tahajjud liwajhillahi ta'ala, for God's sake, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sake. This is a qiyam, and we really truly came in with the intention to make it beneficial and to help everyone remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So take that time on your own, and it's a beautiful time to seclude and reflect and think about your friendships. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as Asil said, start with that dua. This is the perfect time. Pray those 2 rak'ah sunnah, and in those sujood, try your best, be sincere, show Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala your weaknesses and ask him for his help and guidance. He's really the only one that can provide us with that guidance and that help, and make letting go of bad friendships easy. Besides that, we are all done. And I just really want to say Jazakallahu khairan to our beautiful speakers, amazing speakers. Alhamdulillah, you guys were really, really helpful and beneficial. Jazakallahu khairan for your time, and for everyone in the backstage that's been helping us coordinate and putting in time and effort. Jazakallahu khairan jami'an. Inshallah, we'll see you guys soon, and inshallah you guys have a blessed Ramadan. Assalamu alaikum.